Hello and welcome back to the Chattercade podcast, where we usually discuss media in the form of reviews or topical-based discussions. I'm your host, Dragon King Thomas Hughes, and this is an episode I was planning to do Friday just gone. I was actually planning to record it in the morning since I watched this on the Thursday, but I now have the chance on the Friday morning to actually sit down and bash this podcast out. But I'll do it this week, maybe a week late, but it's going out at the end of the day, so that's a win for me. And I'm going to be reviewing the movie The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the latest entry in the Ape saga. I apologise for that. I am currently expecting a phone call, so I'll mute that just for now. Obviously the latest entry in the Planet of the Apes saga. It's the fourth entry, and the first since 2017. And it's also the first to not be directed by Matt Reeves since the first entry, Rise. So if you're not familiar with the Planet of the Apes saga, obviously Planet of the Apes has been going, what was it, the 60s, the 70s, the first Planet of the Apes come out. Charlton Heston. And obviously it's gone for many sequels, rebooted it with Mark Wahlberg, remade it with Mark Wahlberg, with Tim Burton at the helm, and then they rebooted it entirely with a new universe with Andy Serkis as the lead ape. And obviously that came out in, 2011, I think Rise came out. And ever since then, they've just been killing it with these sequels. Rise itself is a great starting point for this franchise. Obviously it's probably got the weakest of the CG, but that's because it's 2011. And compared to where it is now, it's always going to look a bit less good. Don't get me wrong, still great CGI, still excellent CG, obviously. But if you compare it to the latest one, you're obviously going to notice a lot of upgrades, is what I should say here. And so they killed it with that entry, kickstarted a whole new universe, gave it a breath of fresh air to a franchise that no one had seen really since the early 2000s, when obviously they tried to do it with Mark Wahlberg and Tim Burton, and they tried to make a more dark look. Basically, they just tried to do the original one again, but with the Tim Burton feel to it. And it just, I remember liking it. I haven't seen it for years, so I might have to actually rewatch it and actually have a conversation about that another day. But I remember liking it, but I can't remember too much. But of course, it didn't do enough to justify more entries like the original one did back when that first came out. I mean, I said the original one justified enough to make multiple sequels and a TV show, and even a remake. But obviously the Mark Wahlberg one just didn't hit off with anyone. So it's a franchise that just died, essentially. But it died similar to, obviously, America attempting to adapt Godzilla. But just like the 2014 Godzilla, 2011 Planet of the Apes revitalized the idea of audiences want to see this franchise on the big screen again. And I say Rise killed it, gave us a new look at the apes, gave us a new idea. What if, instead of just focusing fully on the planet, obviously that's already full of obviously highly intelligent apes, what if we went back? What if we explained how they got to that state? And it was really well done. And then of course they then followed up with Dawn, Matt Reeves taking over as director at that point. And it was okay, let's have a look a bit further down the line. All this virus has spread, people are sick, humans are kind of stuck in certain places, and there's this little feud. There's a feud now between them and the highly intelligent apes. And again, that film was just fucking fantastic. The two follow-ups to the original, obviously, of this new saga, are my absolute favourite of this series. Dawn is incredible. I'm happy enough to say I got to see all these movies in cinema. And I remember watching this one, and it just outstanding. I rewatched it a couple of months ago. I can't remember. I think it might have been over Christmas, just after Christmas. I remember rewatching it, and my love for it just went further up through the roof. It still doesn't beat the next one for me, which I'll get to in a minute, but it was still a really great movie. It's got a really good cast. Special effects are even better than Rise, because obviously it had a couple of years to improve on CGI. I think this came out in 2014, so obviously it's always going to have a more modern digital effects, and it was a really good action film. It actually had a villain a proper villain this time. The Cobra, obviously an ape villain, and you also on top of that had Gary Oldman's character, the head of obviously this group of humans that you're going to be following. So you had a human and an ape villain, which was quite interesting. And as I say, it had a really good story. It drew emotions. Obviously, it drew a lot of emotions from Caesar, since obviously he has mixed feelings to humans, because obviously he knows how bad they are, but at the same time, because of his owner, which, is humorous enough, obviously he sees that as, but they can also be good. Whether it's James Franco, he wouldn't be having this conversation. He'd be putting these humans down instantly if he knew what was coming in so many years later. But obviously he's divided between, do I protect humans? Do I hurt humans? What should I do? And obviously, that his clan, his tribe, as they isolate themselves into the woods. Humans come after power sources, after obviously the dam, and of course the Slight Alliance feuds obviously with the other ape, obviously the ape villain, sorry, and then it just all kicks off into the point of they're now going to war with humans. And of course, then that leads into the 2017 entry, my favourite entry of this saga, War, and that was just incredible. Obviously, they brought in Woody Harrelson as the new human villain. It wasn't necessarily an ape villain. There was obviously ape villains, but they weren't like Cobra level of villain. They were just more minions to the humans. It was a really good final act for Caesar. Him dealing with the fallout of Dawn, obviously his actions against Cobra, and there was just a lot in that movie that it was less focused on him teaming with humans and more just fully focused on him and the apes trying to fight these humans, trying to save his people, his tribe, his ape tribe, and obviously he's human along the way, always is, just to add that little, tear in Caesar's obviously emotions. Do I protect this human? Do I not? Which is something obviously all these movies pretty much have. And as I say, it had a very emotional ending, which is so sad, and it just kick-started where this is going. And obviously, I say I love the trilogy, and when they announced Kingdom, I had a mixed feeling originally on it. I was like, okay, I do want to see another Planet of the Apes, but at the same time, I know War was a perfect ending. That could have been it. Obviously, you could reboot it, then like years and years down the line. But of this story, I feel like War was the point of, that's it. It's a perfect ending to this trilogy. A trilogy that had him, obviously from the first one, improved drastically into the second, and just stayed at that level, and it went above it for the third. So I was always had that mixed feeling, and then obviously on top of that, then it was obviously revealed that Matt Reeves obviously wasn't directing it. Obviously Andy Serkis, obviously we all know for the fact that a War wasn't going to be in it. So you always had that mixed feelings, and like, okay, it's going to be a tough task for this director who's going to take over to follow. And obviously they got Wes Ball, is it? Obviously who did the Maze Runner trilogy, and again, I don't mind the Maze Runner trilogy, but if you compare it to the Planet of the Apes trilogy, yes, I know Reeves did it the first one, but if you compare the two trilogies, Maze Runner is nowhere near. It's entertaining, but it's not an incredible trilogy. So I was like, okay, this could go either way. This could be a decent entry, or it could be bad. Or, well, not bad, but like, obviously just entertaining. And on top of that, they announced it's set like many fucking years. Like, was it 100 in the end? Was it 300 in the end? My mind cannot think which number it was. I need to re-Google the number, but I fucking forgot to do it. So obviously then I'm just like, okay, it's a massive fucking time jump. My mind for a sequel, if we're gonna follow on, would be following on with Caesar's, obviously the tribe that Caesar's left, and pretty much set straight after the ending of War. But this obviously goes further down the line and focuses on a new bunch of apes, and it's just like, okay, I've got mixed feelings about this. But the trailer looked really good, so I was like, okay, this could go either way. I'm hoping it goes in the way of positive rather than negative. And as I say, it came out last Thursday. I got to go see it in the afternoon, and honestly, I was not let down by this movie. This movie was outstanding. Once again, digital effects are phenomenal. This movie is definitely going to nab a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the Golden Cave Awards next year. The visuals are just phenomenal. The story is good. You're running the mill sort of story, but it's still pretty entertaining. My only complaint probably would be it is slightly long. It is about 2.5 hours long, and I probably could have cut some out. But at the same time, though I'm complaining, I'm not going to be fully bashing it on that for the fact that it's a new protagonist, it's a new set of characters. You need probably that bit of runtime to try and establish them and get fans behind them, because obviously the fans had Caesar for 3 movies, and yeah, he grew on you over the course of the 3, but now he's gone, and you're bringing in a new protagonist. You're like, okay, we need to try and build that love a slight bit quicker, but not fully quicker. And at the same time, you've also got to establish this new world, because again, if you set this movie straight after war, you wouldn't really have to establish the world because it's there. Whereas this time round, there is that time jump. There's that huge time jump where they look at it and go, okay, we need to say we need to show a bit more what's gone on. We need to show a bit more of this world, how it's changed in this huge time frame, and it needs that time. It needs that longer length of movie to do that. But as I said, I would like maybe a bit of time trimmed off, maybe like 10-15 minutes, so it clocks at 2:15. But I'm trying to think when I'm looking at it, is like, what would I cut? What scenes would I cut? I'm not going to spoil anything yet, will I? What would I cut to make it that shorter length? But that's my only sort of gripe with this film. Other than that, the movie is phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It realistically, you don't heavily have to watch the original trilogy. I like how a lot of this, it starts off with the pretty much moments after the ending of war. So obviously, if you haven't seen them, you might not understand that, but there's a lot of explaining as the film goes on, which you can kind of get away with not seeing the trilogy. But at the same time, I do recommend watching it before you watch it, because though you could be in the same boat as Noah is in this film, where he's learning about Caesar, he's learning about the past. Though you could be in that boat, which would be an interesting mindset to go into the movie with. But it is very useful to go into it with this prior knowledge, because you're kind of looking at it from the orangutan's perspective that's in this film. As orangutan, who's one of my favourite characters in this movie. He's hilarious, he's smart, and he's basically the one who has this past knowledge. He's the one that's trying to pass this knowledge on to Noah during the movie. So you could kind of go into this movie with either as Noah as your mindset, blank slate, only knows little bits and bobs, or you can go into this movie as the orangutan, which I can't remember his name. I just know he's voiced by the actor who voices Peter Griffin's boss currently in Family Guy, and he's also in The Orville. And you can even go into the movie with his mindset of, I have past knowledge, and I know that the way they're referring to Caesar a lot is bull. I know the actual truth of what's going on. And so this one's interesting as well, because it goes back to, what if an ape's the villain? And this brings in Proxima Caesar, who's played by Kevin Durand, who I literally saw not long ago in Abigail, which I find hilarious, because in Abigail you also had Dan Stevens, who was in Godzilla X Kong. So both of them, either side of Abigail, appeared in ape-based movies, and both were different sides of the equation. Obviously, one was a good guy, one was a bad guy. So I find that quite ironic. Perfect timing, if you ask me. And yeah, he's obviously playing Proxima Caesar. He's the leader of this huge clan of apes, and he basically brings other clans in because he wants to make his own kingdom, essentially. That's why it's called Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because he wants to make a kingdom and he wants to be its leader. Of course, the whole point of this movie is he takes Noah's clan, and Noah, obviously Noah is the Eagle clan, and he wants to get his people back. His ape family, his ape friends back. He wants to drag them all back home, but he's got to go through Caesar to get that. And I say along the way he meets the orangutan, he meets a human, obviously played by Freya Allen, who was in The Witcher. And the whole rest of the movie is their journey from Eagle Clan all the way to this new kingdom. So it is interesting because the first Planet of the Apes, really, humans were the villains, and obviously at the end, though apes kicked off, they were very much, you could be like, okay, you can see why they've kicked off because of how they've been treated. This is why it's happened. Dawn went, okay, human and ape villain. War went just human villain, and Kingdom's like, okay, let's focus on apes now. Let's try and get to the point of we're at the actual Planet of the Apes, where humans are essentially slaves, or just like not intelligent at all. Because at this point, obviously, the virus has made humans very dumb. So obviously they went polar opposites, which is what's been happening over the course of these movies. But obviously, a lot of times now, humans are becoming slaves to the apes, which is shown by one character in this film, which I won't get into too much because it's a bit of a spoiler. And it's like, I like that each movie's had that different antagonist. I like that, I say, the first one didn't really have an antagonist per se, but I like the fact that over the course of the following 3 movies, they've had an antagonist each time, and it's been different. You had it split between an ape and human. The first in Dawn, fully just a human in War, and then an ape fully in Kingdom. And I like that. I do like that. I think that's a really good, smart idea. But yeah, I like the action. I like the action in this film as well. The action's pretty good. It's weird that they decided to go with the main protagonist looking very like Caesar early on, because he does look like early Caesar before he got really old. So it's weird that they didn't like try and change the design, but I'm guessing it's probably the idea of, well, we can sell this movie on the same look. So if people glance at the cover, they might see the same sort of face and be like, oh, I know what this is, and then you can check it out. So you can kind of maybe put it to that. But I'm not going to gripe on that design choice too much, because as I say, it's an easy to do design choice. It's familiar for people. What else I'm going to think of for this movie without spoiling anything really? I like the ending. I will say that. I won't say what the ending is, but I like the ending, and I'm interested to see where they do go from this in the next act. Obviously, the next movie in the series, because I believe this is supposed to be the start of a new trilogy. From what I read the other day, apparently there's meant to be 9 movies. That's including what they've done so far. So I'm guessing that's literally just 3 different trilogies, which would be interesting, because then it'd be 3 different trilogies focused on 3 different characters. Now, that'd be quite interesting for the fact that you have you start for each character in obviously in the first movie, and the third movie is their concluding chapter, and you restart going forward. That'd be quite interesting, and obviously then you in the next sort of trilogy, you could kind of get to the point of that's the full Planet of the Apes. That's where we were at in the OG movie. That's where we were at in the Tim Burton movie. So that'd be kind of cool if they did that. But I say, I like the mysterious angle at the end. There is some. It's hard to get into because it's fucking massive spoilers. But I like the sort of shock, cliffhangery ending. And I'm definitely interested to see where they go from that. It's just hard to speak. The only way I can properly give my thoughts on the ending sequence is by generally just spoiling the entire ending, but I don't want to. This is a spoiler-free review. If you like this enough, I will at some point come back and do a full spoiler review. Might even do one on each of them, or just do a whole episode focus on obviously all 4 entries, like I did at the start of this, but spread it out over an hour or so rather than just a couple of minutes each. But yeah, so it's got a good ending where it's left it at a point where it'll draw you. It want you to come back for the 5th entry, which I say if they're keeping up with where they were originally, I say, because it's the first entry of the new trilogy. So the 2011 was the first one, 2014 was the second, and 2017 was the third. 3 years difference for. The 3 years difference each time, but then of course they took a huge break because that's when the Fox merger started happening. So obviously this is the first under the Disney banner, technically. It's one first fully funded by Disney. So if you look at it, you're probably looking at what in 2024. Maybe 2027 would be the second one, if they kept it the 3-year gap between, and then it'd be what 2030 is that the last one. And I feel like that works. I feel like the 3-year gap in each trilogy works, and then have a break. So 2017, 2024 is what? 7 years is that? Yeah, I don't know why I have to work that out. 7 and 7's 14. I don't know why I had to work that out in my head. But yeah, I think that works. I feel like the 3-year gap between each single entry is fine, and then have that bigger gap once the entry's over, unless you're carrying on with these characters in the next obviously the next trilogy. Then I feel like you can get away with having a smaller gap between 6 and 7 if they do go that far. So you're probably minimum looking at 2027 for the next entry. That depends on how well this does. I think I'll Google it now actually while I'm here. I know it did well in its opening few days, I believe, from what I was reading on IMDb. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So it's box office in its first weekend. Obviously, this would be more by the time this episode goes out. Probably more over that following weekend. Going to the internet here, it made about 130. Its budget was 160. That's not bad really for its first weekend. As I say, for the fact that there hasn't been one for a while. For the fact that there is other stuff out at the moment that might draw people away. So hopefully, like, good word of mouth brings people to see it over the next few weeks. So now, obviously, Godzilla X Kong, that in its first weekend probably did similar, maybe about 200, and now it's at like 500 plus. It's like the second highest grossing movie of the year. Godzilla, I'll tell you right now. Actually, I'm pretty certain it was the second highest grossing movie of the year. 558. Yeah, second highest grossing film in the end. That's good. That is really. So hopefully this continues its run, because it's got at least this week coming up, I think, to earn a bit of cash, because the only thing coming out in this next week is that new If movie with Ryan Reynolds, which I don't think's gonna blow everyone away. I hope I'm wrong. I do like Ryan Reynolds movies, so I hope that I'm wrong, but ignore that for the fact that it's not a massive film. Massive film with basically massive legacy, I should say. So if we ignore that, Planet Apes has got at least this week currently to earn a bit more. Realistically, it's got till, get my calendar up, 24th of May, realistically, to try and get a bit of money in its bank, because at the 24th of May, obviously, you've got the Mad Max prequel Furious coming out, which will probably be a big film. If, again, when it first comes out, there's a massive positive review on it. I feel like that's a lot of times, if there's like a lot of good words of mouth early on, that's how a movie kicks its box office run a lot of times. And this has got good, obviously, reviews at the moment, both critically and audience-wise. So hopefully that helps this at least double, if not get a bit triple its income over the next couple of weeks. if we look at the rest of the Planet Apes franchise, right, stop fucking going to Amazon Prime, you stupid thing. Rise of the Planet Apes. That had a budget of 93 million. It made 481 at the box office. Dawn had almost 235 million budget apparently, and it made 710 at the box office, so it made its money back. Then War 190, and it made just under 500. So I feel like if this makes 400 plus at the box office, that would be a win, because it's made the region that they always aim at, because as I said there, Rise and War both earned just shy of 500, whereas Dawn made over 700, which is over his budget. It had to make that fucking much. So I feel like anything 400 plus for this I feel like Disney would see as an absolute win, and hopefully warrant them to go, okay, let's get a sequel. Let's start making this next entry. But the question is, would they still use Wes Ball as the director? Because I know he's supposed to be doing the Zelda movie. Supposed to be. So it'd be interesting to see if they carry him on or not. Because realistically, I feel like if you're going to do a trilogy, you need to use the same director throughout most of them, really. If you want to have that same mindset, essentially. Because obviously, the first trilogy, you had two directors. You had one director in the Rise, and you had two doing Dawn and War. And so you had one did Rise, one did Dawn and War, and you had an easy story flow between Dawn and War because it being the same director. But obviously, they got let off with obviously Rise because the fact there was a slight time jump, which is the same with this. It got let off by that time jump where they just had to really make references to the past. And I wouldn't mind seeing this guy come on and carry on, because he's done a really good job. This was funny, it was action packed, the music was good, CGI was spectacular, the story was decent, and it was a really entertaining film. And I do say I prefer this to Rise. I would put it above that, but I will put it below Dawn and War. So if I put it in a rating sense, I'm going to give it a 9 point... My ratings are shit anyway. I usually say fuck it in the end. I'm going to give it a 9.7. I say it's not as good as Dawn of War. Them for me are fucking 10 out of 10. They're phenomenal. But I do prefer it to Rise. I feel like because the world's already established, it's got modern special effects, and it is a pretty entertaining film. So I feel like 9.7 is a good point to put it at. And I say it's one of my favourite films this year. It's definitely up there with a couple of other ones that are close to the top. I'm talking Dune, I'm talking Abigail. It's definitely fighting up top. Obviously, it's not going to surpass Doom because Doom is just an experience. But yeah, obviously, if you've seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, put your thoughts on it in the comments below. If you've seen the whole quadrilogy now, obviously put your thoughts on each of them in the comments below, and obviously your ranking of them, because mine's War, Dawn, Kingdom, Rise. See how different it is to mine, so you can put that in the comments below. And say if you want a spoiler one, just ask away in the comments and I'll try and sit down. More than likely when it's come out on Blu-ray, because I'll have to sit through it again to try and get a bit more spoilers on it. So obviously just put that in the comments below and I'll get back to you on that one. And just tell me where you want to see them go in the 5th entry and onwards, because there's a lot they can do going forward, and I'll be interested to see where you think it's going to go from here. Real quick note before I actually wrapping it up, and then I realised basically I need to do this as well. I want to obviously thank my channel this week, as of Monday, celebrated 4 years on YouTube, and I just want to thank everyone that has basically supported me along the way. Obviously everyone who subscribed over the course of these years, thank you very much. Obviously the podcast will be celebrating 4 years next year. I just thought I'd just bring it up, basically the fact that YouTube's popped up saying happy birthday to the channel. So yeah, thanks for the past 4 years, and here's to another 4 years as well. Because there's plenty more energy for me to give, uh, and plenty more fun for me to have on this channel. Yeah, obviously, if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, Amazon Music, etc., etc. Obviously, you can check out the video on YouTube itself, where you'll find many other content, much more content is the word I'm after there. Get me words out, Tom. From gaming videos to reviews, to just random stuff that I've done along the way. Gravity Falls should be back by the end of the month. It's another thing I wanted to bring up, which I forgot to bring up in the actual video. Me and Alex and I have recorded a bunch now. I think we've got about 4, maybe 5 episodes backlogged. I want to try and release at least 1 or 2 towards the end of the month. And I want to try and get the rest recorded before we actually get those out. So at least then there's no more long ass breaks. So it actually will go out and finish June. We'll finish June with all Gravity Falls done. And then we can either move on to something else or just take a break and then come back at some other point to carry on with the Dragon Bear show. I would like to maybe move on to some like multiplayer games with him. Take a break from these reviews because I love playing multiplayer games. Co-op games, especially with Alex, are always fun. So I might look into something like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Nothing else to really say, so I hope you've enjoyed, and see you next time. Goodbye. If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.